You are involved in an accident and another person is injured. You should A. Move the injured away from the scene immediately. B. Always leave the injured where they are. C. Not move the injured unnecessarily. Keep the injured warm and administer first aid. D. Stay away from the injured. C. Not move the injured unnecessarily. Keep the injured warm and administer first aid. After an accident, do not move the injured unnecessarily. Unskilled handling can make serious injuries out of minor ones. Keep the injured warm until skilled help arrives. If there is severe bleeding, attempt to stop the flow of blood with direct pressure. A driver who is taking a non-prescription drug should A. Read the labels on the drug before driving. B. Drink alcohol instead. C. Continue to drive regardless of any warning labels. D. Drive only during daylight hours. A. Read the labels on the drug before driving. Many over-the-counter medications can affect your ability to drive safely. If you take medication, even a remedy for colds or allergies that is not prescribed, check the label for warnings about its effects. If you are unsure, ask your doctor or pharmacist about driving while on the medication. This sign means A. Left turn yield on green. B. One way. C. Cattle crossing. D. Two-way left turn. A. Left turn yield on green. Regulation signs regulate traffic speed and movement, displaying rules which drivers must obey. This regulation sign indicates that drivers turning left at a green light must yield to oncoming traffic and may complete the turn when it is safe to do so. The most common color of warning signs is A. Red. B. Yellow. C. Green. D. Blue. B. Yellow. Most warning signs are diamond-shaped and yellow with black markings. These signs warn drivers about unexpected conditions that may not be readily apparent.
Want to ace your DMV test? Click on the link below and get your guaranteed cheat sheet.
When driving on slick roads, you should A. Take turns more slowly than usual. B. Change lanes quickly. C. Accelerate quickly. D. Brake hard. A. Take turns more slowly than usual. While it is always dangerous to drive too fast on slippery roads, this is especially true when driving in turns and curves. Be sure to approach them more slowly in slippery conditions than you would under normal circumstances. This sign means A. One-way traffic. B. Two-way left turn. C. Two-way traffic. D. Minimum speed limit. When driving in fog, A. Use your parking lights. B. Use your low beams. C. Use your high beams. D. It makes no difference which lights you use. B. Use your low beams. You should use low beam headlights when driving in fog, rain, or snow. You may drive around or under a gate that is being lowered or raised at a railroad crossing. A. As long as an approaching train is not too close. B. If your vehicle can do so without damaging the gate. C. If you first look carefully in both directions. D. Under no circumstances. D. Under no circumstances. Flashing red lights, lowered crossing gates, and/or bells at a railroad crossing mean that you must come to a complete stop. You must not go across the tracks until the lights and bells have stopped and the crossing gates are completely up. Do not drive around or under a gate that is moving up or down. When you see other drivers around you acting or reacting in anger. A. Don't make eye contact. B. Don't react with hand gestures. C. Distance yourself from the situation. D. All of these. To help prevent crashes, you should: A. Communicate with other road users. B. Ignore other drivers on the road. C. Drive only on side streets and back roads. D. Avoid driving during rush hour. A. Communicate with other road users. Crashes often happen because one driver does something that other road users are not expecting. You should communicate with other motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians by doing things like signaling when slowing down, stopping, or changing direction. Use your emergency signals or horn when appropriate. Defensive driving is: A. Driving aggressively. B. Using safe driving strategies to prevent crashes. C. More dangerous than not driving defensively. D. A bad idea. B. Using safe driving strategies to prevent crashes. Defensive driving is using safe driving strategies to prevent crashes. This means that you alter your driving to fit the weather conditions, the way you feel, and the actions of other drivers, bicyclists, and pedestrians. A person walking with a white cane or guide dog is likely to be: A. A deaf person. B. A person involved with a traffic study. C. A blind person. D. None of the above. C. A blind person. Drivers must always yield the right-of-way to a pedestrian when the pedestrian is a blind person who is using a white cane or guide dog. A yellow light that flashes on and off means: A. Stop and look for other vehicles, then go if there is no traffic. B. Stop and wait for a green light. C. Speed up to clear the intersection quickly. D. Slow down and proceed with caution. D. Slow down and proceed with caution. A flashing yellow traffic light means drivers should slow down and proceed with caution. This road sign means: A. Do not pass. B. Do not enter. C. No turn on red. D. Keep right. D. Keep right. This sign indicates that a divided highway begins ahead. The road will split into two one-way roadways separated by a median or divider. You must keep to the right. This sign means: A. Stop sign ahead. B. Lane closed ahead. C. Railroad crossing ahead. D. Traffic signal ahead. D. Traffic signal ahead. Warning signs are usually diamond-shaped with black markings on a yellow background. They alert drivers to upcoming hazards. This warning sign indicates that a traffic signal is ahead and drivers should prepare to react to a yellow or red light. You may avoid the risks of alcohol-related crashes by: A. Deciding before you start drinking that you are not going to drive. B. Simply saying, "No thanks, I'm driving," if someone offers you a drink. C. Calling a taxi. D. Doing any of the above. D. Doing any of the above. The only way to avoid the risks of drinking and driving is to decide before you start drinking that you are not going to drive. Because alcohol affects your judgment, it will be harder for you to make safe decisions after you have started drinking. This road sign means A. Sharp turn to the right. B. Double curve. C. Winding road. D. Pavement ends. C. Winding road. This sign indicates that the road ahead winds with a series of turns or curves. A regulatory sign containing a red circle with a slash through the middle indicates A. That drivers should come to a complete stop. B. That an action is forbidden. C. That some drivers should yield to other drivers. D. That drivers should drive under the speed limit. B. That an action is forbidden. Some regulatory signs prohibit certain actions. These signs are rectangular and white with red and black markings. A red circle and slash on top of a black symbol indicates that the specified action is forbidden. Which of the following influences the effects of alcohol? A. The amount of food in the stomach. B. The body weight of an individual. C. How much time passes between drinks. D. All three choices. This sign means A. Stop. B. No U-turn. C. Yield. D. Do not enter. D. Do not enter. This sign is placed at the beginning of one-way streets and ramps to indicate that you must not continue driving in your current direction. At a four-way stop. A. The driver to arrive first has the right of way. B. The driver to arrive last has the right of way. C. One driver should continue driving without stopping. D. One driver should wave the other drivers ahead. A. The driver to arrive first has the right of way. At four-way stops, traffic from all four directions must stop. The first vehicle to reach the intersection should move forward first. If two vehicles reach the intersection at the same time, the driver on the left yields to the driver on the right. You are driving on the roadway and hear a siren behind you. You should A. Stop where you are. B. Pull over to the right and stop. C. Speed up to get out of the way. D. Slow down. This sign means A. Narrow bridge ahead. B. Lane ends or roadway narrows ahead. C. Industrial area. D. Freeway on-ramp ahead. B. Lane ends or roadway narrows ahead. Warning signs are usually diamond-shaped with black markings on a yellow background. They alert drivers to upcoming hazards. This sign warns drivers that the right lane is ending or that the road is narrowing ahead. Fill in the blank. Limit your concentration, perception, judgment, and memory. A. Only a blood alcohol level greater than the legal limit can. B. Alcohol does not. C. Even the smallest amount of alcohol can. D. Only a blood alcohol level greater than 0.05% can. C. Even the smallest amount of alcohol can. Even the smallest amount of alcohol will reduce your concentration, perception, judgment and memory, and your driving skills will suffer. No one can drink and drive safely. You may not park. A. On a hill. B. In a parking lot. C. On a crosswalk or in a marked bicycle lane. D. Within 12 inches of the right side of the road. C. On a crosswalk or in a marked bicycle lane. There are a number of locations where it is unlawful to park, including on a crosswalk or in a marked bicycle lane. When parking on the street, you must be within 12 inches of the side of the road. If another driver cuts you off in traffic, you should A. Pull next to the driver and yell at them. B. Let it go. C. Flash your high beams at the driver. D. Get back at the other driver by cutting them off. B. Let it go. To avoid the dangers of road rage, you should never take it personally if another driver cuts you off in traffic. Just let it go and continue driving safely. Drive below the posted speed limit when A. Anything makes conditions less than perfect. B. You see a police car. C. Entering a highway where there are other cars. D. You are on a 4-lane road. A. Anything makes conditions less than perfect. When the road is wet or slippery, when you cannot see well, or when anything else makes conditions less than perfect, drive below the posted speed limit. Even if you are driving within the posted speed limit, you can still be ticketed for driving too fast for conditions. If you are driving in another driver's blind spot, you should A. Move forward or drop back so the other driver can see you. B. Keep a steady pace. C. Stay in the driver's blind spot. D. Honk to let them know you are there. A. Move forward or drop back so the other driver can see you. Do not drive in someone else's blind spot. Move forward or drop back so that the other driver can see you. City driving is more dangerous than expressway driving because of the A. Lower speed limits. B. Narrower driving lanes. C. Cross traffic and pedestrians. D. Worse road conditions in bad weather. C. Cross traffic and pedestrians. Crashes at intersections result in more fatalities and serious injuries than on any other portion of the road. You should always be alert for vehicles and pedestrians, including those that may disregard a traffic signal or other traffic control device. If two vehicles arrive to a four-way stop at the same time, A. The vehicle on the left must yield to the vehicle on the right. B. The vehicle on the right must yield to the vehicle on the left. C. Drivers must make hand motions to communicate with each other. D. One driver should proceed without stopping. A. The vehicle on the left must yield to the vehicle on the right. In general, vehicles at a four-way stop should proceed in the order that they arrive. However, if two vehicles arrive to the intersection at the same time, the vehicle on the left must yield the right-of-way to the vehicle on the right. Which of the following is true regarding seat belts and child restraints in vehicles? A. You should never place an infant or small child in the front seat of a vehicle with airbags. B. An airbag can be dangerous to an infant or small child, even in a low-speed collision. C. You should always make sure all your passengers are using a seat belt or child restraint. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. Before you drive, Always fasten your seat belt and make sure all your passengers are using seat belts or child restraints. Studies have shown that if you use seat belts, your chances of being hurt or killed in a traffic crash are greatly reduced. Children age 12 and under should always ride properly restrained in a rear seat. Never put a rear-facing infant restraint in the front seat of a vehicle with a front passenger airbag. When changing lanes, you can check your blind spots by A. Using the inside rearview mirror. B. Using the outside rearview mirror. C. Using both inside and outside rearview mirrors. D. Turning your head and looking over your shoulder. D. Turning your head and looking over your shoulder. You should turn your head to check your blind spots before every lane change. Your first response to reduced visibility should be A. Turning on your headlights. B. Reducing your speed. C. Turning on your windshield wipers. D. Looking for road edge markings to guide you. B. Reducing your speed. Reducing your speed should be your first response to decreased visibility and dangerous road conditions. You are involved in an accident. You should A. Stop immediately. B. Help the injured. C. Call the police. D. All of the above. D. All of the above. If involved in an accident, you should stop your vehicle immediately. If possible, move the vehicle out of the way of traffic. Call the nearest police agency and ask for an ambulance, if necessary. Do not move the injured unnecessarily, but attempt to stop severe bleeding with direct pressure. Wait for emergency vehicles to arrive. When a stop is required at an intersection and no markings appear to indicate a stop line or crosswalk, a driver A. is not required to stop. B. is required to slow down to make sure crossing traffic is clear. C. should stop only at a place where they can see at least 200 feet on either side, even if they have to enter the intersecting roadway. D. should stop where they have a clear view of approaching traffic before they enter the intersecting roadway. D. should stop where they have a clear view of approaching traffic before they enter the intersecting roadway. If there is no stop line or crosswalk, you should stop at the point nearest to the intersecting roadway where you can get a view of approaching traffic. You should not enter the intersecting roadway to gain a better view. This sign means A. slow down if an emergency vehicle is approaching. B. look both ways as you cross the intersection. C. always come to a full stop at the intersection. D. slow down and be prepared to stop if necessary. D. slow down and be prepared to stop if necessary. Decrease your speed as you approach an intersection with a yield sign. Prepare to stop and yield the right-of-way to vehicles and pedestrians in the intersection or crossroad. You must come to a full stop at a yield sign if traffic conditions require it. An intersection has no traffic signs or signals. You arrive at the same time as a vehicle to your right. You should A. speed up and get through the intersection. B. slow down and yield to the vehicle on your right. C. drive into the intersection and make the other vehicle stop. D. honk your horn and drive through the intersection. B. slow down and yield to the vehicle on your right. When two vehicles arrive to an uncontrolled intersection at the same time, the vehicle on the right has the right of way. Once the vehicle on the right has safely passed through the intersection, the other driver may proceed. At a school crossing sign, you should A. Always stop, whether there's a stop sign or not. B. Watch for children and be ready to stop. C. Always sound your horn when you see children. D. Be ready to help children crossing the street. B. Watch for children and be ready to stop. You must always yield to pedestrians who are in or about to enter a crosswalk. Be alert to pedestrians when driving across intersections or turning. This road sign means A. Cars in right lane must slow down. B. No left turn. C. Merge. D. Pass only in the right lane. C. Merge. This sign indicates a merge ahead. It warns that two lanes of traffic moving in the same direction are about to become one. On a two-lane street, your vehicle is being followed by a fire engine that is not using its emergency signals. You should A. Continue to drive in a normal manner. B. Stop as quickly as you can. C. Speed up to get out of its way. D. Slow down, move as far to the right as possible, and stop. A. Continue to drive in a normal manner. If you are being followed by an emergency vehicle that is not using its siren or flashing lights, you do not need to clear a path. Continue driving in a normal manner. The effect that lack of sleep has on your safe driving ability is the same as A. The effect that alcohol has. B. The effect that amphetamines have. C. The effect that anger has. D. The effect that driving with teenagers has. A. The effect that alcohol has. Fatigue and being under the influence of alcohol have similar effects on your ability to drive safely. For example, being awake for 18 hours impairs your driving about as much as a blood alcohol level of 0.05%. Being awake for 24 hours in a row has the same effect on your driving as a blood alcohol level of 0.10%. This sign means A. Stop. B. Side road. C. Two-way left turn. D. Farm machinery. A. Stop. 8-sided traffic signs warn drivers that they must stop and yield the appropriate right-of-way at an intersection. Drivers may proceed when it is safe to do so. This road sign means A. You are about to enter a one-way street from the wrong direction. B. U-turns are prohibited. C. You may proceed if the way is clear. D. Come to a complete stop before proceeding. A. You are about to enter a one-way street from the wrong direction. If you drive past these signs, you are going the wrong way and are at risk of a head-on collision. You should cautiously turn around. When parking uphill next to a curb, set the parking brake and A. Keep the rear tires against the curb. B. Keep the front tires straight ahead. C. Turn your steering wheel away from the curb. D. Turn your steering wheel toward the curb. C. Turn your steering wheel away from the curb. When parking facing uphill on a street that has a curb, set your parking brake and turn your steering wheel away from the curb. This way, if your vehicle starts to roll, it will roll into the curb. When a funeral procession is present, fill in the blank. Has the right of way. A. Another driver. B. A pedestrian. C. The funeral procession. D. A bicyclist. C. The funeral procession. Drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists must yield the right of way to funeral processions. When the lead vehicle enters an intersection, the remaining vehicles in the funeral procession may follow through the intersection regardless of any traffic control devices. Seat belts are most effective when they are worn by A. The person driving the car. B. Passengers when they are on a long drive. C. All occupants of a car being driven on an expressway. D. All occupants of a car every time the car is driven. D. All occupants of a car every time the car is driven. When you drive, make sure each person in your vehicle wears a seat belt. In the event of a crash, a person without a seat belt becomes a flying object and a danger to each person in the vehicle. This road sign means A. Drive with caution and be ready to slow down. B. Do not drive in this lane. C. You must come to a complete stop and yield the right of way. D. Slow down, be prepared to stop, and, if necessary, yield the right of way. D. Slow down, be prepared to stop, and, if necessary, yield the right of way. This type of triangular sign means drivers must yield. You must slow down as you come to an intersection marked with this sign and be prepared to stop. Let any other vehicles, bicyclists, or pedestrians pass safely before you proceed. Round signs indicate A. No passing zones. B. School zones. C. Upcoming railroad crossings. D. Hospitals. C. Upcoming railroad crossings. Round signs warn drivers of an upcoming railroad crossing area. Drivers should use extra caution when approaching a railroad crossing. You are driving when it begins to rain. You should A. Drive faster than surrounding traffic. B. Drive at the maximum posted speed limit. C. Slow down. D. Drive closely behind the vehicle in front of you. C. Slow down. When heavy rain reduces visibility, reduce your speed. Turn on your headlights so other drivers can see your vehicle. If the rain is so heavy that you are unable to see clearly, drive onto the shoulder and stop until the rain lets up. This sign means A. Bicycle crossing. B. Stop. C. Fines double in a work zone. D. Stop ahead. A. Bicycle crossing. Warning signs prepare drivers for upcoming road conditions and hazards and are usually yellow with black markings. This sign alerts drivers to potential bicycle cross traffic.